Tithing sermons are the worst, because you always sound like you're just asking for money. Televangelists have even turned it into a stereotype of the Christian church. So instead of talking about how important tithing is, or declaring that you're stealing from God if you don't give exactly 10% of your paycheck to your local church, I want us to instead look at where the concept of tithing comes from and how it translates into our world today. When tithing was first introduced in the Bible, there were no bank accounts or paper money. Most of people's wealth was contained in their belongings, things such as land, livestock, clothing, and food, things that people needed to survive and take care of themselves. Now, God introduced the concept of tithing into this culture for the Israelites that he had a covenant with. And although the Israelites were one people, they were divided up into 12 different tribes by the descendants of Jacob's 12 sons. One of these tribes was the tribe of Levites, descended from Jacob's son Levi. Now the Levites were given the responsibility of being God's priests and managing the temple. The problem with that in this culture was that they had no means of receiving a paycheck for their work. They also had no land or livestock, so they had no means of providing food or clothing for themselves. In order to deal with this problem, God instructed the remaining 11 tribes of Israel to provide the Levites with 1/10 of the things they acquired, such as the crops they harvested or the clothes they made, so that the Levite people could be fed and clothed. So then, what happened if the Levites received more food and clothes than they needed? Well, they could then take these extra commodities and disperse them to the poor who needed them. In doing this, God assured that the 11 other tribes of Israel would provide for the Levite tribe and also gave a means of meeting the needs of the poor. It was honestly a brilliant system. So let's fast forward this to today. Thankfully, we're no longer divided into tribes where our occupation is determined by our birth. We do, however, still have priests, now called pastors in the Christian culture, whose full-time jobs are doing God's ministry work and overseeing the churches where people gather. Because pastors don't have an employer that signs a check for them every month, they still rely on the rest of the people who visit the church to provide them with the means they need to pay their bills. We also may not have one grand temple anymore, but we still have churches that require maintenance and regular expenses. Churches and pastors are also given the responsibility of helping out people in need and funding mission trips to help these people, as well as funding missionaries who go out and do full-time ministry in places that don't even have churches. This leaves us with the need for tithing remaining consistent. Pastors cannot do ministry full-time unless they're given some means of paying their bills. Churches close down if they're not able to pay the power bill, removing a location for Christians to gather together. And churches are not able to help people in need unless there are funds left over after the bills are paid. Of course, it is then the responsibility of pastors to make sure that we use the money we receive correctly. And any pastor who lives in the lap of luxury while people on the streets are going hungry is not acting in accordance to Scripture when it comes to the purpose of tithing. It really is the responsibility of each and every one of us to make sure that we use our money responsibly and that we take care of the people who are in real need. Let's not sit down to a feast every night when we know of people going hungry without doing something to help them first. If you want more information about anything I've said or have a question or comment about this or any other topic, remember that you can always email me at sermoninthepocket@gmail.com. And if you like what I'm doing and want to support this podcast, I have a Patreon by the same title, Sermon in the Pocket. I'd love to be able to do this full-time one day. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and have a wonderful day.